In this video, I'm going to show you how I planted out my garlic this year. I ordered 2 varieties of garlic, one hardneck variety and one softneck variety. The softneck variety that I chose was early red Italian garlic, and I chose it because it's early, because I think it's popular for its good taste. And the hardneck variety I chose was music, because I like the sound of that, and I've also heard good things about it. So the differences between hardneck and softneck: hardneck tends to be more cold tolerant, and I think also has a more like pungent taste. If pungent is the right word, it's a very strong taste. Softneck garlics tend to store better for longer, and they're, I think, easier to like braid and stuff if you want to store it that way. But they're a little less cold tolerant. I have heard both do well in Alaska, so I'm gonna try it. I think where I'm living at, it's a pretty mild winter compared to the rest of Alaska. I live in Anchorage, and I live on kind of the west coast of Anchorage, so it's very close to the water. And I think that kind of moderates the extreme cold. So I'm hoping that my garlic varieties are gonna do well. I did plant them a bit later than I was hoping to, just because every place around here, when I tried to go and purchase garlic bulbs, they were all out. And so I had to order them online. And because I was doing it so last minute, I just got it a little bit later. What I wanted to do was plant it after the first night of frost. But that came and went, and then I still needed to get my garlic bulbs. So I did it on October 18th this year. That's when I got them planted in, and hopefully that is good enough. Hopefully they had enough time. I just checked the raised beds, and now they're frozen solid. But let me show you how I filled it up first. I used a bunch of old potting mix from the containers that I had. I forgot what was in it. I think one of them was my the potting mix from my potatoes in the grow bag, and something else. And then I also dug up a bunch of the homemade compost from my compost heap. It's not fully finished. You can still see like strands of whatever was in there, stems and stuff, but it's pretty well broken down. So I added it in and just tried to mix it all around. In hindsight, I think I should have added the unfinished compost first and then the potting mix. Either way, I also added a bunch of plant tone fertilizer to this. My plant tone has been sitting around, its bag broke, the bag that it came in, so I had it in a Ziploc bag, and this has been sitting around outside. It also had a rip in it, so it's going bad, and I just want to use as much of it as possible. So I started with the softneck garlic, the early red Italian, and I just wanted to be as careful as possible breaking the cloves apart. I didn't want to cut through too much of the papery skin, and I didn't want to damage or go into any of the clove itself. I wanted it like a clean film of papery covering around each one, so that it would protect it from too much moisture getting in and from it rotting. Actually, the spot that wants the moisture is right at the bottom, that flat part of the garlic clove. And something I learned just recently actually was that flat part where the roots come out of, that flat and hairy part at the bottom, that's actually the stem. And the cloves of the garlic are modified fleshy leaves. But they're really what store the energy for the plant to grow in the spring. So what I know is that you want to plant garlic 3 to 4 inches deep and about 4 to 6 inches apart. I probably was on the smaller side of that. I know you can get bigger cloves if you plant them 6 inches apart. You also want to plant your cloves with the rough side down and the pointy side up. And then also what I did, because I had so many and because I overestimated how much I could fit in that raised bed, I ended up, creating a grid of, 4 to 6 inches apart. I'd probably say maybe 5 or 4 inches apart I did. So I created a grid of those holes, and then in kind of the center of it, so it's like a little bit offset, I did another hole, and that's where I planted garlic in as well. So they're kind of crammed in. And then I went ahead and did the same thing for the music variety. I also wanted to show you how it looked like. So for the hardneck varieties, it's kind of one hard center like shoot in the middle, and surrounding it is a layer of those cloves, of the garlic cloves. And that's pretty different from the soft neck varieties, where instead of like that hard center, it's more of just like a bunch of smaller cloves on the inside. So there's a lot more, but they're smaller. I didn't plant the small cloves in this raised bed. I tried to use all of the music cloves. There weren't as many. But for the smaller early red Italian bulbs, I had a lot, and I ended up taking it into the hoop house and planting up a grow bag in there. So I think that'll be nice to see how it performs in the hoop house. I know that I'll have to go in and be watering it. I did water it in once, and I haven't touched it with water since. And I hope that's okay. Everything's kind of freezing now, so the hose is turned off outside. And I have a big container of water in the hoop house that I can water with if needed, but I'll just see how much it needs. I don't want to rot out the garlic. I think that's an issue I had with planting tulips and daffodils in containers last year. But speaking of which, I also planted some daffodils, and I did kind of a similar thing with the daffodils. I did it more consciously, thinking that I would try and see the differences between daffodils that I planted up in a container outside and daffodils that I planted up in a container in the hoop house. And wanted to see, you know, how early of blooms can I get? Will the hoop house actually give me early blooms? Because I think it'll warm up much faster in the spring inside the hoop house. Just 6 inches below the surface, plant your bulbs with the flat side down and the pointy side up. The thing that I have to be mindful of is overwatering, or just the watering situation in general. Outside, I'm sure I won't have to do anything because all that snow will melt in the spring and we'll be giving it its water. We have a bunch of snow outside. Actually, you can see the windows behind me. And in the hoop house, yeah, I'll just have to see when I have to water it. I'll just be checking, you know, deep into the soil to see how dry it is and if it needs a little bit of water here and there. For these wooden barrel containers that I planted the daffodils in, I have had kind of a difficult time planting in those like all together. I tried blueberries in there before, and they have not come out of dormancy. Those plants died. So I'm not sure if it was just too cold for them, because they are zone 4, and in containers they just get a bit colder because the air temperature is colder than they would be insulated in the ground. So I'm not sure if that was the issue or if it was because of overwatering. There's really only one drain hole, and what I should have done is drill a few more drain holes at the bottom, but I just switched out the potting mix. Actually, I think what was in there was actually garden soil or raised bed mix, but it was very woody and it held on to a ton of moisture. So I'm hoping that this new mix that I put in will be better about water and not create, you know, any boggy kind of situation in there. This daffodil variety, or at least the mix, I got it from Home Depot, and I never know what kind of things, if it's advertised. This was advertised as it's a naturalizing mix, and I'm hoping that it can naturalize here in Alaska. Sometimes these things don't work in Alaska, though that marketing is meant for a bit warmer of climates. So we'll just see. I'm hopeful. I've heard daffodils are much better at naturalizing than tulips. I planted a bunch of tulips last year and it just wasn't great. Not a lot came up and flowered. So something else that I wanted to show you, and I thought I would do it in this video because I used these gloves for planting my first round of garlic, and they were much too like smelly to use the second time. They actually have been quite smelly for a while now. It's a little disappointing because they are gardening gloves and they're supposed to be like water resistant gardening gloves, but they just get, I don't know if it's because my hands sweat or if just moisture gets in there and then it takes too long to dry out and bacteria breeds in there, which is fine, whatever, but it just smells so bad and it makes my hands smell bad for the rest of the day. So I just didn't want to wear them when I was planting in the hoop house. So I figured I would show you a way that I am washing them. So I just have a big bowl full of warm water here. And I'm just going to be putting in a little bit of dishwasher soap, so mild dishwasher soap. I'm using Dawn, what I have on hand. I might put a little bit more. And maybe this is too much water and soap to be using. I'm just mixing it around with my hand. And then my pair of gardening gloves. I am really just gonna soak it through. What I really wanna make sure of is that the inside of these get clean. And I have another pair of gloves that, you know, I didn't think I was going to use for gardening, but I ended up doing a lot of gardening chores in. They're just, I think, cheap ones that I got off of Amazon, and I mostly use them when I go on walks when it's really cold out, which I'm starting to more and more these days, like if I'm taking Chug out on a walk, but I figured I would wash these as well, because they were starting to smell bad too. Gosh, anytime I put my hands in the soil and it gets soaking wet, or my gloves in the soil and it gets wet, it just smells so bad. So I do have another pair of nicer gloves. I'm just gonna see how this turns out before I do use before I wash my other pair of nicer gloves in this way as well. And I'm just wringing it a little bit. I just want to make sure that, you know, if there's anything caked onto the gloves, it's coming off and all the surface area is just exposed to this soapy water. And I'm gonna let it soak for like 10 minutes, then take them out, wring them, rinse them off, and leave them to dry. And I'll let you know how it goes. So just a quick update on the gloves. I just used these today. It's been maybe a couple of days since I washed them and left them out to dry. So it was the day before yesterday. Yesterday I just wasn't feeling well and I really didn't get anything at all. So these just sat to dry, and I dried them with the wrist parts open so that the air could go inside. And these smell just fine, and they were fine to wear, and my hands smell fine afterwards. I was having the same issue with those pairs of gloves, and these ones actually are not completely dry yet, or one of them's not completely dry. But they smell fine. They smell like whatever this rubber stuff is, so it's not necessarily a pleasant smell, but it's definitely the odor that was there is gone, and I don't feel like it's gonna stay on my hands if I use it again. So I'm super happy about that. I'll let these dry for another day or so, and I just let them air dry in the kitchen. I could have put a fan on it to make it go faster for sure. I might actually just take a blow dryer to it just to get it done quickly because I'm gonna forget about it. So yeah, I just wanted to give an update on these. That's it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.